I think we can all agree that most of 1970s television was crap. So I'm going to tell you 5 science fiction TV series from the 1970s that weren't crap, right after the intro. Get it over with, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let's get on with number 1. UFO. Jerry and Sylvia Anderson had played around with puppets for more than a decade before they made the first live-action TV series UFO. They've been doing Supercar, Captain Scarlet, Thunderbirds, all of those really cool shows, but they hit live action in 1970 with a very groovy and beautifully designed TV series called UFO. It stars Ed Bishop as Ed Straker, who ostensibly is the head of a movie studio in England, but is secretly in charge of Shadow, the Supreme Headquarters Alien Defense Organization. Shadow has a moon base, it has a UFO detector in orbit, it has a whole bunch of interceptors which are launched from submarines. It's got all sorts of groovy things that people would have enjoyed in the 1970s, particularly if they were fans of the previous Jerry and Sylvia Anderson shows. The interesting thing that UFO did was they treated it seriously as a grown-up program. People had personal lives, people were troubled by what they did. They discover more about the aliens and find out that a lot of the aliens that they are attacked by are actually human beings who have been subverted to the alien civilization. And even Straker himself, you get an episode where you find out how his personal life fell apart while he was creating and running Shadow. So there are lots of subtleties in this one that weren't really a part of science fiction television very much before this. The set designs are beautiful, the costume designs are wonderful and ludicrous. There are some really groovy looking cars, which were concept car designs that they used for the show. And it's just got everything you want from a 1970s science fiction TV show. And that little extra depth that you get from the characterizations and the fine character acting really does add it and lift it to a different level than anything we'd seen previously from that organisation. Add to that Barry Gray's really good twang guitar theme music, which is so 1970s, it might as well be wearing Platform Souls. But overall, UFO, I can't really fault it for anything. I think it's not as sophisticated as a modern television show would be, but it is 50 years ago now. So you've got to make allowances for that. I'm not saying excuse things because they were from another time, but I think there's a lot in this show that really does work. And I think that it's a precursor to other television shows that followed, including The X-Files. The only problem with the show is you can't really find a decent reason why the women on the moon base were wearing leotards and purple wigs, but what the hell, it was 1970, you've got to cut them some slack. Number 2. 1970 also gave us another English television show, which was science fictional but treated the science seriously and had a very different tone and a very different look than UFO did. And that was Doomwatch. Now, Doomwatch was 3 seasons of prophetic television. The concept is pretty simple, really. I'm going to read this off my thing. Doomwatch is about an English government department called the Department of Measurement of Scientific Work. And it's a bunch of scientists that get together and try to kind of foreshadow technological and sociological problems before they happen, or investigate things that are happening which are unexplained, and then look for solutions. Now, they hit a whole bunch of different problems and different crises, which are incredibly timely. Doomwatch would do an episode, say, on hormones in food production. And then there'd be something in the news about hormones in food production. They'd do something else about a certain type of pollution, and that type of pollution would turn up on television a couple of weeks later. They really hit a run during the first season of being just ahead of the curve with real world news. Now, Doomwatch had some really cool episodes. The first one was about a bacteria that eats plastics that gets loose on an aeroplane. And that's pretty extreme too, because there's a potential there for it to destroy all of civilization if it gets loose. So the scientists have to investigate that. There's also an episode where the crew have to go up against some super intelligent rats that have been bred in a lab. And that, even though you hardly see the rats at all, really has a lot of tension, and given the small budget and the fact that it was studio based, they did some location shooting sometimes, but most of it was studio based. They really put it across incredibly well. There were other episodes about things like subliminal advertising to encourage people to smoke tobacco products. There were other bits about the influence of technological forecasting on politics. Now that's incredibly timely, particularly in America and Australia right now. It was way ahead of the curve on this kind of science fiction, where they're looking at things that are almost happening and kind of warning for them. They were cautionary tales, and for 3 seasons Doomwatch did it very well. There was also a movie made of Doomwatch about some mutations happening to people on an island off the coast of Scotland, which got a bit of play in various markets. And then in 1999 there was also a television movie, decades after the series ended, called Doomwatch Winter Angel, which was about disposing of nuclear waste in a very dangerous and innovative way. I haven't been able to find a copy of that one because it's nowhere around. It's impossible to find. But I'm going to keep trying because I'm very interested to see how they updated the concept. Doomwatch is a TV show you could make now. You could really use current technologies and current concerns and put this kind of a TV series, or even a streaming season of it, across really well. So the people who own the rights to it should really look into that. I've got one American series in this group, mostly because I've got a nostalgic love for it, and I liked it when it first came out in the mid-1970s, and it's Fantastic Journey, which ran 10 episodes and had a silly concept, but it was kind of interesting in its own way. It has some interesting actors in it.
Lost in the Devil's Triangle, trapped in a dimension with beings from the future and from other worlds, a party of adventurers journeys through zones of time, back to their own time.
It had some nice writing stuff, including DC Fontana in the background, who kind of cut their teeth on Star Trek, the original series. And the concept is very 1970s. It is so 1970s it's ridiculous. A boat full of people end up in the Bermuda Triangle, which is trade 1970s, and end up on an island which has a whole bunch of different time zones. There are people from all different centuries in there. You move from one area to another and you're in another time. So in the first episode they meet a bunch of pirates led by none other than Ian McShane, I kid you not. And then they go into a futuristic city. There are a whole bunch of different places that they go to. They pick up some friends, including a kind of new age guy from the 23rd century, played by Jared Martin. They pick up a 1960s scientist who's running a kind of villa full of robots, played by Roddy McDowall, which is kind of cool too. It ran 10 episodes and it kind of had problems with the budget. The network didn't have much faith in it and it kind of died out. But it's very much got that kind of 1970s science fiction feel that you got from movies like Logan's Run and the TV series of Logan's Run, which was really, really bad. Kind of works, and they finally released it here in Australia on DVD, so I picked up a copy of it. I watched about half of the episodes. They're not great, but they do have the zeitgeist of 1970s network television in America, science fiction, nailed down really well. And again, it's of its time. Well, I'm not going to say, I've got to stop saying things are of their time, but this one is definitely incredibly 1970s, and if you can get a copy of it, it's worth doing a little bit of a binge. It's only 10 episodes. You'll probably skip a couple of them because they're dumb, but nonetheless, I've got a lot of fondness for this one. Now I'm going to go for a deep cut, which I can't find on any physical media, but there are a lot of episodes of this particular series on YouTube. They've got little timestamps at the top of the screen, but it's worth checking out because it's very much another prophetic kind of science fiction show from 1977 and 1978. Now, as I said, I don't have the physical media of this one, but I do have 2 novelizations by the guy who created the series. 1990 it's called, and it starred Edward Woodward as a journalist in the last surviving free newspaper in England in a dystopian future of 1990. The backstory to that is that there's a economic crash in the UK in 1981 and things collapse. They get a lot of rationing, import, exports. The economy basically crashes entirely. The society crashes entirely. And there's a kind of socialist takeover of union leaders and left-wing politicians, which create a dystopian surveillance state. Kind of the only parallel I can make in the real world is the way China is going at the moment. And people's social status is based on what they call the life score, which is their usefulness to the state, their ability to work, their allegiance to the state and all that kind of thing. And meanwhile, there's this free newspaper, one left surviving, and Edward Woodward plays an investigative journalist for that newspaper. He goes up against the apparatus of the state. It's a very different England than they have now. The House of Lords has been abolished and has been turned into a dining club. It really is kind of something to scare right-wing people in a way. But the series worked. It had good acting. It was willing to take the risk of alienating left-wing viewers by giving us, as a change, a left-wing dystopia. When politics gets to the extremes, left or right, you do get that kind of sameness about the two extremes. The authoritarianism of the extreme is one of the main themes in this particular series. It ran 2 seasons. It's on YouTube, and I watched a few episodes a few weeks back, and I like them. I think it works, and I think that also the prophecy aspect of it, the fact that there are a lot of security cameras, there's a lot of surveillance, there's a lot of money put into the security apparatus of the state, and the fact that people are scored based on their ability to submit themselves to the edicts of the state, makes it a really interesting series. Political science fiction isn't something that's done a lot of the time. There are new series, of course, like Years and Years, which HBO's done, which address it, but it's a hard one to do because you're going to cheese off one side of politics or the other depending on how you do it. But 1990 is worth checking out, and I would love it if there was a way to get it on DVD. I don't mind paying for shows that I want to watch, or series that I want to watch, or movies I want to watch, but there are some of them which are kind of niche and interesting that just don't get a physical medium release, and that's a real shame. And I left the best for last. Space 1999, which people used to joke, Space 1999 discounted from $25. Yeah, this one again is Jerry and Sylvia Anderson. It's mid-1970s. It gets Martin Landau and Barbara Bain, who were married at the time and had been together successfully in some of the early series of Mission Impossible. You got them together to do a really big concept science fiction TV series. They didn't always use the concept as well as they might have, but the concept itself is pretty mind-blowing. Martin Landau plays the head of an international lunar base, which is also a place where nuclear waste from Earth is brought to and stored safely. The only problem is that the nuclear waste on the moon creates a new kind of chain reaction which catapults the moon out of Earth orbit and into deep space and through a black hole, through a couple of wormholes, and on an interstellar journey. So everybody on the moon base, there are a couple hundred people there, are isolated from the Earth. So these people are kind of Robinson Crusoe on the moon, traveling through interstellar space. Now, the concept wasn't really followed through as well as it might have been. There were some episodes which addressed kind of human issues. There was the first birth on the moon, a few other things like that. For the most part, though, it was Alien of the Week kind of stuff, weird aliens. You even get to get Christopher Lee turning up as a kind of weird, gothy-looking alien. And in the second season, they brought in Catherine Shell playing a character called Maya, who's a shape-shifting alien, because that's exactly what you need in this kind of a show, is somebody that can turn into a tiger at a moment's notice. I think they should have got a really diverse writer's room for this one and let them play with the concepts and make it a little more grounded. But having said that, the show has a terrific look. The sets are beautiful 1970s futuristic designs. The costume designs are on point. The model work, of course, this being Jerry and Sylvia Anderson, is fantastic. And you get that iconic and wonderful Eagle transporter spaceship, which is kind of It has a little bit of an Apollo look about it, but it's kind of forecast into the future. I think the acting's pretty much okay. You've got, of course, Martin Landau, Barbara Bain, Barry Morse, a whole bunch of good actors and guest actors who are really good at what they do coming in to the episodes, coming in to play various aliens at various times. Some of it is a bit cringeworthy right now, but I love the bold concept. I love the fact that they actually went there and did it, and the special effects hold up pretty well for modern eyes, which is rare in this kind of a show. That was just why they redid all the special effects for the Star Trek, the original series, because they just didn't play well on high definition screens. It really is an interesting show. I only binged half of the first season, but you can watch the first episode for free. I think Shout Factory have put it up on YouTube, so you can get a bit of a taste of it there. I'll see if I can find a link for you for that. So there are 5 1970s science fiction TV shows that I think are worth having a binge at. Let me know what you think, whether there are any other ones. I really didn't like shows like the $6 Million Man, $6 Million Woman, Incredible Hulk, all those kind of things. I thought they were a bit ropey and kind of dumbed down, but these 5 shows really do have something of value there. I'll be back next week with another video. I'll probably do the second part of my look at anthology horror movies, because I really like them and I got a good response from the viewers about that one. So in the meantime, look after yourselves, keep watching the skies, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies, watch any movie you like, and I'll be back in a week's time. Take care of yourself.